Small phone gang, I have some pretty bad news because the 12 mini is not doing too well. In fact, it's doing pretty badly. So I have discussed this topic in a previous video, which you can check out in the icon above, but today I thought I'd rationalize and theorize whether Apple would kill off the mini line in the near future. Because with all this talk about the 12 mini flopping, why would Apple keep this? Like, what is the point in Apple making this if no one wants it? Well, that's not entirely the story, and so I thought I'd discuss it and give you guys my thoughts and possibilities. And so without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe, click that bell notification for the latest Apple news and rumors, and with that being said, let's just tuck in. So quickly delving into the story, this report comes from an analyst group called Morgan Stanley, who basically says that apparently Apple is cutting production of the 12 mini by 2 million units in favor of the 12 Pro. Now, I have no idea as to why the 12 Pro is so popular. It is by far the worst value in the lineup in my opinion, and so it seems people are buying just for LiDAR and stainless steel, which is kind of weird, but anyways, the facts say the 12 Pro is by far the best seller, and so yes, it makes sense Apple is shifting production to, of course, benefit the demand. But anywho, let's now delve into the possibilities as to what exactly Apple will do with the 12 mini in the future. So number one is pretty simple. Apple keeps the 12 mini for the foreseeable future. So if we take a look at the past, Apple rarely changes or kills off a size midway into a design cycle. For example, between the iPhone 6 to the 7, we had the same exact 4.7-inch size and 5.5-inch size. And of course, between the iPhone 10 and the 11 Pro, we roughly had the same sizes, with the 10 being the exception because it was only one size, but the 10s and the 11, those both had 3 sizes that were near identical. And so going off by tradition, Apple should keep the 4 sizes they introduced with the iPhone 12 redesign for the 12s and the 13 for the next 2 years. Plus, here's the thing about these articles saying the iPhone 12 mini is the biggest flop Apple's seen in 30 billion years. It could be an exaggeration. This is all ultimately clickbait. They want us to click on these articles, and so they could be exaggerating the truth. I mean, think about this, okay? Apple has apparently sold, at least predicted, 80 million units of the iPhone 12 by the end of 2020. 80 million. That's a ton of iPhones. And so even with the iPhone 12 mini taking up 6% of that pie, that's still considerably quite a lot of iPhones. And so I think even though the iPhone 12 mini might not be as good as the other iPhones, it's still doing pretty fine. For example, the iPhone XS and the iPhone 11 Pro were by far the worst sellers out of their lineups, but Apple did not kill them off because while they might be the least popular model, they're still selling quite well, and they're still selling way better than most Android smartphones. And so if there is a market, even if it is small, Apple will cater to it for at least 2 to 3 years. Honestly, a lot of the market who should be buying the iPhone 12 mini aren't going to be upgrading as soon as possible. They probably have no clue as to when we see new iPhones, and so they definitely will be upgrading later in the cycle. And so I think 2021 could be the resurgence of the iPhone 12 mini, and we could see it do better in the second half of its cycle. I mean, take the XR. That phone wasn't doing that well at the beginning of the year. A lot of people criticized Apple for making a cheap iPhone and saying it was a complete flop, but then by the end of the year, it was the best-selling iPhone, and so that could happen with the 12 mini. But okay, you know what? There could be a possibility these articles aren't clickbaiting us and they aren't exaggerating anything, and the 12 mini really is flopping. And so what are the possibilities are there with the 12 mini in the future? Well, my second possibility is Apple keeps the 12 mini, but of course at a cheaper price. So I guess I am playing devil's advocate, and so it's time to play anti-mini, and let's talk about the price, because the price is an issue with the 12 mini. I think it is too expensive for what it truly is. Like seriously, I've seen so many people say they love the mini size, but they don't like the ginormous price. $700 for a phone this tiny is quite unreasonable for a lot of people. And so another theory I have is maybe Apple doesn't update the mini any further. Maybe with the 12S we see no 12S mini, and instead Apple keeps the 12 mini we have today, but at a lower price, much like the 11 and 10R in today's lineup. And I think this could potentially do well because I think the 12 mini is an absolutely great phone. I've said this before. I really think it's a great phone for people looking for that size. And so if it stays exactly the same, but with a cheaper price, I think Apple can keep that in their mid-range lineup for the foreseeable future as a great alternative to, of course, the premium offerings. So yes, I know making things cheaper over at Apple is just not a thing, but honestly, Timothy, this could be the way. Make the price lower, and then you'll see all the massive sales flooding in. Anyways, let's now briefly touch on the third reasoning, and that is pretty obvious. Apple just kills the iPhone 12 mini. So as I said at the beginning, if there is no apparent demand for the iPhone 12 mini, then what is the point in making one since no one is buying them? In fact, Steve Jobs had a really good quote about this, and he said that basically people don't know what they want until you show it to them. That's why I never rely on market research. So yeah, clearly Apple listening to all those vocal consumers who wanted a small phone was a bad idea because clearly that's not the majority of the market. A lot of the market has moved on to bigger phones since we've had big iPhones since the iPhone 6. And so, yeah, I think it's safe to say the small iPhone is ultimately dead. I mean, I mentioned this in my other video about the 12 mini, but essentially, enthusiasts like us love the 12 mini because we have other devices to fall back on. You see, unlike an average consumer, the 12 mini is not your computer for everything. You have a MacBook, you have an iPad, you have a plethora of other options, and so the 12 mini for basic tasks does pretty well. But you see, for a lot of average consumers who rely on their phones for pretty much everything, in fact, they do absolutely every computer need they want on a smartphone, they need a bigger device like the iPhone 12, the 12 Pro, and the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I mean, big phones have become a norm for a reason because we as society have become more reliant on smartphones, and so a lot of us appreciate the bigger size of these ginormous phones. And so the 12 mini ultimately does have a pretty small market that Apple might not feel the need to cater to because ultimately it doesn't make enough money for them. So yes, that could be the sad reality about the iPhone 12 mini, but I do want to touch on my fourth and final possibility, the direction I think the 12 mini is going in, and that is turning the 12 mini into another SE. So it's fair to say the iPhone SE 2020 has ruined the success of the iPhone 12 mini. And that is because to a lot of average consumers, when they see the SE is nearly half the price of the mini and has roughly the same size, it has roughly the same performance, camera ability, Touch ID, which is actually an advantage in the pandemic era we live in right now. So yeah, the SE does seem like the better deal. But coming back to the size, I think a lot of people who want a small iPhone are just comfortable saving money and just going for the SE because it's a size they're comfortable with, it's a size that we've had before, and ultimately, they save hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And so I do think if Apple does kill the 12 mini, they should bring it back as an SE3 in the near future. We of course have seen this in the past, and so it makes sense that Apple would recycle an older design, and maybe they could make this LCD, maybe get rid of Face ID for Touch ID, and ultimately bring the price lower and make it some sort of SE option. But either way, I think a lot of people would be more welcome to this size and form factor if it was $399 instead of $699. And ultimately, if Apple does get rid of this model momentarily, I think they will bring it back for a future SE. The question is exactly when will that be, because the SE gets updated roughly every 4 years. So yeah, we might be waiting for some time for this product, but hopefully one day it does happen. But tell me in the comments below, do you agree with any of my possibilities that I presented, or do you have something completely different in mind? Tell me in the comments below. And on that note, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click that notification for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out a video here in the icon above about some Apple Silicon upgrades that might be quite intriguing to you. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.